Hello lovely people, this week I'm doing a book haul because guess who never stops buying books even though they really should? It's me, I am that person.
Doobie 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 doo. Doobie 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 Sophie Vlogs.
As per usual, these are all second hand, so they're only like a couple of quid each, which is why we always end up here. I'm always just like, here's the thing I impulsively bought. So, shall we dive into them? First up is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. I don't really need to tell you what this is about, I think, because this has had a lot of hype around it for a lot of time, and I've never got round to reading it, and I thought this could be my moment. I genuinely don't actually know a lot about this, so I'm kind of interested to see what's going on. Is it a dystopian? Is it like these people with powers? I don't really know, but I will find out. On to something which I do know more about. The next book is The Muse by Jessie Burton. I read The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I liked it. I also particularly enjoyed the BBC adaptation, which aired over Christmas time. I just thought it really suited being like a visual piece of media, and they made some changes which I quite enjoyed in the time. So that sort of renewed my interest in Jessie Burton. And so when I saw this, I thought, hey, pick it up. The cover is gorgeous already. And I know someone who's read this. It was Leah is Jewish, I believe. And they said it was all about sort of like someone who works in an art gallery and like the art world. And if there's one thing I like, it's art and art history and stuff. So I'm wondering if this is sort of looking at like the history of a painting and like I'm trying to uncover what that is, which I think sounds really interesting and really reminds me of The Improbability of Love. Can't remember, Hannah Rothschild, was that who did that? That was a similar thing of tracing, like, you got, like, the painting sort of, like, was a character in that book. This has just turned into me recommending you guys a book, The Improbability of Love. If you like books about art that look at, like, tracing histories of a painting, that's a great book to read. So maybe this will be similar, maybe it will be different, but I'm intrigued enough to give it a go. Next up is Wish I Was Here by Jackie Kay. I've heard such good things about Jackie Kay, and I've never read anything she's written, and this is a short story compilation. I'm currently reading a book of, I think, 101 short stories, which is taking me a very long time, because I'm only reading it every now and then. So it's going to be a while before I can get round to this, because I tend to have things of different genres on the go. So my short story genre is filled, and it will be filled until I finish that beast of a book. But when I do, maybe then I could do a little short, delightful short story collection to, like, I might be a bit fatigued by the end of that. So, but suffice to say, these are all stories about love, and that's all I know. I'm interested to see the different types of love that are explored in this, because I'm going to assume it's not just romantic love. And yeah, I'll get back to you once I've finished the other gigantic book I've read. The next book has a cover which I have lusted after for a while, and that's The Bees by Laline Paul. I hope that's right, I'm sorry. Number one, like, this cover is so enticing, like, just bold and delightful. This sounds so intriguing. So, like, Flora is our main character. Born into the lowest class of the totalitarian hive society, she's prepared to sacrifice everything for the queen. And then it seems like she goes through a lot of stuff, and then, like, her status grows. But when her instinct to serve is overwhelmed by a fierce and deeply forbidden maternal love, she breaks the most sacred law of all. This sounds like a really interesting and unique concept. So I'm really looking forward to just, like, discovering what this world is and what is going on, essentially. Apparently she's also done a book about being the cold, something to do with the cold or something, which was recommended to me by someone at Griffin Books, and that sounded really interesting as well. So maybe this is going to be an interesting, intriguing new author for me. Next up is A Double Sorrow, Troilus Criseyde by Lavinia Greenlaw. So this is based on Chaucer's big poem. I wrote my dissertation on Troilus Criseyde, and also I did a medieval romance module in the same year, and I wrote an essay on it. So, like, I am deeply familiar with the Chaucer text. This is like a reimagining, and as I've said a couple of times, my dissertation was on the figure of Briseis through literature. So Briseis and Chryseis from the Iliad, during medieval tradition, became linked and became crusade. And then Troilus and Criseyde Troilus is a Trojan prince, and then Criseyde is a Trojan noblewoman who is given to the Greek camp. So they're doomed, essentially, and it's all very tragic. So I'm interested to see this. This is her pinpoint retelling draws out the story's psychological drama, illuminating each small but irrevocable step as these characters argue each other and themselves into and out of love. So I haven't read anything to do with Troilus and Criseyde in ages, and this was my moment, so I went for it, and the cover is delightful. Okay, penultimate book is The Princess and the Goblin by George Macdonald, which I picked up because Hannah at the Dyslexic Reader recently hauled this, and she said she's been looking for a copy for ages. They're really, really rare. She couldn't find them. It's a childhood book, blah, 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 which reminded me that there is an animated film of this, which I loved as a child. I absolutely love that film. I've never read the book, so I managed to just stumble across on Etsy this second-hand bookseller who, I don't remember the name, but I'll leave a link below, because they do lots of, like, 70s and 80s editions of books like this, and I managed to buy it for, like, £2. So, I'm really excited to read this, and to see what is in the book that is not in the film, and just generally, like, have a lovely little kids read-along thing. Finally, I've got Her Brilliant Career, 10 Extraordinary Women of the 50s by Rachel Cook. I'm really excited for this. Can we all tell from all of my book chats and stuff recently that just like vaguely historical women doing cool things is just grabbing me? So, and I've not really read a lot about women in the 50s, I don't think. So this has like a range of women. So there's architects, there's gardeners, there's a theatre director, there's an archaeologist, there's a writer, there's a magazine editor, a rally car driver. So this is just going to hopefully be a really interesting look at 10 really interesting women who are not on my radar at all. I don't recognise any of the names in this, which is shoddy, but I will rectify that and hopefully discover some super duper interesting people in the process. That is it from me this week. These are just some super interesting books which can you tell I'm really enthusiastic about. I'm really excited to read these. If you've read any of them, I would love to hear your thoughts. And otherwise, I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I will see you next week.